Ruthless Compassion is a podcast about how you can turn your emotional shit into fertilizer for success and see your darkest moments as opportunities to transform into a powerful kindness warrior. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave a review wherever you listen. Today I want to talk about hate. There's been a lot of hate going around these days, and I thought it would be good to break it down. So first, I want to talk about why we hate. Well, we hate for three different reasons. Because we fear the unknown, or because we are afraid of something happening to us. And generally, this fear comes out of ignorance because we don't take the time and pay the attention to really find out whether our fears are well grounded or they're based in fantasy. It's kind of a primitive response to be in this kind of fear state. So one easy way to let go of hate is to inform ourselves so that instead of being afraid of what we don't understand, we can understand and be no longer afraid. The next reason why we hate is because we're not willing to share. We're afraid that something that we have will be taken away from us or that we'll have to share it with others. But that reminds me of these two little kids who are playing with a toy, and one of them pulls the toy away from the other and goes, I hate you, I hate you. And the mother comes along and asks, why are you fighting? And it turns out that the one child doesn't want to share the toy with the other, and they hate their sibling who also wants to play with the toy. So this, again, is a very primitive response. It's being unwilling to share, and it's a very antisocial response because we live in a pro-social society where connection and community is the number one predictor of good well-being, both physically and emotionally. So we need to be able to interact in a pro-social manner with the people around us, and that means we need to learn how to share. So when we hate people because we don't want to share with them, that's antisocial. It's not good for our society, and it's also not good for us because it will not make us happy. We won't have good connections. If we don't want to share with others, they won't want to play with us. You know, it's like that kid in the sandbox who takes all the toys. Nobody wants to play with them. They kick them out of the sandbox. The third reason why we hate is because something bad happened to us or to a loved one, and then we generalize that negative feeling toward that person forever or toward that person's group forever. So let's say our father got into a bad car accident with a person from Quebec and the father became injured, then we decide that that person is always bad and we're going to hate them forever, even if perhaps the accident wasn't that person's fault, but we decide we're going to hate them forever. Or maybe we decide we're going to hate all people from Quebec and we're going to hate them forever because we generalize that feeling. But again, this is a primitive response because we don't know the facts. Maybe that person was not at fault, or even if they were, maybe they are remorseful and they have a lot of regret and they have demonstrated it. And obviously, not every single person from Quebec has caused your father to be hurt. So generalizing from one bad experience and hating a person forever or a group forever is not the best way to function because it sticks you with toxic emotions for the rest of your life. Now, I want to talk about forgiveness because it's really important that when something bad happens to us, we let go of our hate. But a lot of people say we need to forgive in order to let go of our hate, but we don't need to forgive. In my opinion, forgiveness requires 4 conditions, and these are the 4 conditions. First, the person who caused you harm has to acknowledge what they did. Second, they need to sincerely apologize. Third, they need to promise never to do that thing that hurt you again. And 4, they need to demonstrate in their behavior that you observe that they have really changed. And if these 4 conditions are met, then you are free if you choose to forgive them, but you don't have to. What you do need to do is let go because you don't want to carry that negativity with you because it's poisonous. And I'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. So why is hate bad for you? Well, the first reason hate is bad for you is it keeps you attached to the thing you hate. So you always feel bad. You always have this negativity. And, you know, if you feel someone is a bad person, do you want to be thinking about them all the time? Do you want to be carrying them around in your psyche all the time? I don't think so. But hate is like a glue. It attaches you to the object of your hate. So that is not great for your emotional well-being. The other reason hate is bad for you is because when you hate, all of your positive hormones like oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone that makes you feel positive emotions and also is good for you, that's lowered. The endorphins, which are the feel good hormones, and also they're good for you physically, they're lowered. And cortisol, which is the stress hormone, is raised. And the thing about having low oxytocin and low endorphins, then it makes your immune system more susceptible to illness and disease. And having high cortisol makes you more likely to have cancer, heart disease, and dementia at an earlier age. So, having low endorphins and oxytocin and high cortisol is actually very unhealthy for you physically. So, that's why hate is bad for you. So I see hate as an addiction because it's like any other compulsive behavior. We do it over and over again. We do it repeatedly in the false belief that it is giving us some positive payoff, but it doesn't. It actually makes us feel bad. And just like every addiction, dopamine, which is a neurochemical in our brain, plays a role. So I'll talk about dopamine. Dopamine is an interesting chemical because when we are doing any kind of stimulating activity, whether it's eating junk food, drinking excessive alcohol, using drugs, playing video games, spending excessive money, gambling, or watching pornography, we get this brief burst of pleasure. And that feels really good. But following the brief burst of pleasure, we get increased cravings for the substance or activity that we were doing. And that leads us into this loop where we have the activity, we get this burst of pleasure that's very fleeting, and then we have intense cravings and keep repeating. So, when we have dopamine being triggered by this activity like hatred, it leads to engaging in more of the same hateful behavior. And what we're looking for is satisfaction. But that burst of pleasure is very brief and the cravings are very intense. And so we end up doing more and more of the behavior, but we're never satisfied. And the cravings are stronger. So we keep doing it and feeling worse. It's like eating junk food or using drugs. It makes us feel unwell and undernourished. So hate is bad for us emotionally because we feel empty, frustrated, unwell, and unfulfilled. And it's bad for us physically because of the hormonal changes. Like I said, low endorphins and oxytocin, high cortisol, leading to being predisposed to real illness and early death. Now, how can we let go of hate then? Well, the first thing we need to do is recognize that it's actually not helping us and it makes us unwell. If we are caught in hate because of fear, all we need to do is pay attention to what's really going on and see that we can protect ourselves and our loved ones, and we can take care of ourselves and our loved ones by being in touch with reality, truth, facts, and science. The other thing we need to understand is that we don't need hate because instead of hating to protect ourselves, we can engage in good self care by connecting to our feelings and needs, expressing our feelings and needs, setting boundaries and limits with other people so that we don't feel hatred toward them, and giving appropriate consequences so we don't build up resentment. We also need to learn how to share and see that we're not giving up so much when we're sharing. And in fact, when we're sharing with others, they're also going to be sharing with us. So we actually end up with more when we share rather than less. Of course, we need to be able to let go when something bad happened and not generalize one bad experience with a whole group of people or with one person forever. We need to see that letting go enables us to release toxic negativity and it will improve our mood and our overall well-being. And again, we don't have to forgive, but we always need to be able to let go. Letting go is part of what's called mental flexibility. And mental flexibility is one of the primary sources of mental wellness, aside with social connection. So you can see how hate is kind of going contrary to two of the most important sources of wellness, which is connection and mental flexibility. So when we're able to let go and let go of our toxic negative emotions, and when we're able to connect with others in a positive and pro-social way, then we're going to have wellness, we're going to have happiness, we're going to have fulfillment, and we're going to have inner peace. Hate is a very toxic emotion, and it's, like I said, very addictive, which is why people get caught up in it. But we can free ourselves of hate in the same way as we free ourselves from addiction. We can replace the negative emotions with positive emotions. We can practice letting go, possibly forgiveness, and we can start practicing loving kindness and compassion. And when we take good care of ourselves, when we set good limits, when we give appropriate consequences, then we don't feel angry and we don't need to hate. I'm Dr. Marcia Sirota. Please stay tuned for more content on this podcast. Be well, and I wish you love, not hate.